We've been looking at the ordinary everyday skills of reading and how we need to apply those skills to the Bible. And you'll remember that to help us do that, we've broken up reading into 4 stages: context, observation, meaning, application. We've already looked at context. Now let's turn to observation. This is just a fancy word for simply taking notice of what's there, keeping your eyes open, paying attention, observing what's going on in the text before you. The first thing you notice when you open almost any piece of writing is what kind of writing it is. We usually size this up in a moment. Is it a newspaper article? Is it a poem, an editorial? Is it fiction, non-fiction, biography, advertising? The clues for what sort of writing can be things like the way it's laid out, or the heading it has, or the external features it has, or its location, such as being on the front page of the newspaper. But even if those clues don't tell us much, we usually pick up what kind of writing it is pretty quickly just from the style, from the language. Even from the opening sentence of "Tears of the man who said come aboard," we know that it's probably a news report. But when we come to the Bible, we often don't bring this basic skill with us. Sometimes, because of our reverence for the Bible as God's word, his unique and holy word, we treat it as if it were its own special kind of writing, unlike anything else, a kind of holy writing that doesn't conform to the usual conventions of writing. And so we just read everything in the Bible as if it were this one kind of writing. Perhaps the most common mistake is to read the whole Bible as if it were one of the letters of Paul, which are often straightforward, didactic arguments where every word and phrase counts and where the logic is very important to follow. But if we read other kinds of writing in the Bible as if it were like this, we can very quickly get ourselves in a muddle. The Bible contains different kinds of writing, different genres is the technical term, and we need to notice or observe them as we start reading. So the first step in observation is to notice what kind or genre of writing you're dealing with and to read it accordingly. What else should you observe? Well, perhaps the next thing to observe as you read through the first time are the words themselves. Are there words that keep popping up again and again, or that you don't understand, or that seem to stand out as important in the passage? So, for example, in Mark 2, which you read a week or two ago, right in the middle of the passage, Jesus says, "I came to call not the righteous, but sinners." Righteous and sinners are very important words in Mark 2. What does Jesus mean by righteous and sinners? Who are the righteous? When we look through the passage, we notice that sin and sinners keeps popping up all the time. Who are these sinners? How do we see Jesus calling the sinners, but coming into conflict with the righteous? So when you're in observation mode, look out for the important words. They might be words that you don't understand, that you have to chase up the meaning for, or they might be words that are repeated or which come at the high point of the argument or story. A very important class of words to watch out for as you read the passage are the connecting words that link the different parts of the passage together. In a narrative, these will be words about time and place, now after that, or when he saw, or the next day, and so on and so forth. In an epistle, the connecting words might be logical connectives between different parts of the argument, words like therefore, or because, or but, or just as, and so on. Spotting the connective words can often be vital in coming to understand how the different parts of a passage hang together. Most pieces of writing have a shape or structure to them, and usually this structure has quite a lot to do with the overall meaning of the piece of writing. In one of the New Testament epistles, the passage will often be structured according to the argument that the author is unfolding. In a narrative or story, the structure might revolve around changes of scene or time as the story unfolds, or it might be driven by different characters as they enter the story, and so on. As you look for the connecting words in a passage, you'll find yourself starting to notice the structure of the passage. So, in Mark 2, 1-17, the structure is very simple. There are 2 main events or episodes. In verses 1-12, where Jesus heals the paralysed man and confronts the Pharisees about the forgiveness of sins. And then verses 13-17, where Jesus calls Levi the tax collector to follow him, eats at Levi's house, and again confronts the Pharisees with what his mission really is, to call not the righteous, but sinners. This brings us to the fourth and final thing worth noticing or observing closely. Are there any key statements or summaries in the passage that point you to the main idea or ideas of the passage? In Mark 2, we see a number of these key summary statements on the lips of Jesus. But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, he said to the paralytic, I say to you, rise, pick up your bed and go home. Or later in the passage, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. So when you start to look closely at the Bible passage, you're being a bit like a detective who keeps returning to the crime scene again and again to make sure he hasn't missed something. You'll usually have to read it 2 or 3 or more times to observe what's there. Being a good observer takes time. It also takes curiosity. To be a good biblical detective, you've got to want to find out what's there. You need a hunger for what God is really saying in this text and to be ready to keep searching and observing to see what's really there. But enough from me. Why don't you turn now to Romans 5 and try doing a spot of observation for yourself.